Welcome into the Score Studios. This is Top Shelf presented by Enterprise. Big trips, sudden detours, last minute plans, whatever it is, we're here for it. I'm Kyle Cushman with the guys John Matisz, Josh Wegman, and fellas, you can see the Christmas decorations, which means one thing: the World Juniors are almost here. It's one of my favorite times of the hockey calendar. I'm a big prospect nerd, and I'm super excited for this year's tournament again. It's always so dramatic, and it's nice that we have like the Olympics coming up as well. It's been so long since we've kind of had everything on the international calendar, but the World Juniors kicks it off this coming week in December and then into January, leading into the Olympics in February. What are some of the big World Junior memories and favorite moments that you guys have before we really dive into this year's tournament? Josh, you want to kick things off?
Yeah, for me, it's that 2005 tournament, the stacked Team Canada.
All time.
It was just the perfect storm of the 03 draft being incredible, and then the 05 lockout, having everyone available. And yeah, that team was just so dominant. And then I got the chance to meet them as a kid, which was really cool. I got
Where
to
was
meet
that
a bunch
at?
of them. I forget the event. My uncle hooked it up. He had some connections. But
Look at this guy.
Yeah, big wheel Wegman.
He's got some connections.
Yeah, it's got like a signed picture of the whole team, basically.
Oh,
so that's
nice.
Framed still in my parents' house, actually. I should
Of all
probably,
teams, that's pretty legit.
yeah, it's a pretty cool memory.
That's awesome. John, do you got any that come to mind?
I mean, the Eberle,
Yeah.
sensational
09.
performance in 09. And I can still picture, the way he scores that back angle. I think it was in the semis to tie it or something to that effect.
Yep.
And just, I can just picture him perfectly in my head. And then there's the Mason McTavish goal line save from a few years ago. It's those moments that stick out to me more than, full tournaments. But, that team, not to backtrack too much, but, Corey Perry,
Patrice
Crosby.
Bergeron, Sidney Crosby, Getzlaff, Jeff Carter, Mike
Oh.
Richards, Dion Phaneuf.
Come
just
on.
absolutely loaded.
Yeah, I'm taking us back,
Weber.
but that's I couldn't get out of my head how stacked that team is.
Yeah.
And in classic
05.
Canadian fashion, a goaltender that you probably can't remember as well.
Jeff Glass.
There we go, Jeff Glass. I was trying to rack my brain who it was. That's awesome. For me, I think the big one, going back to 2009 again, is my favorite World Junior tournament. The New Year's Eve game that year against the United States. Canada goes down early. John Tavares, 2 goals in quick succession, ends it with a hat trick. Just kind of one of those, especially draft year guy as well. Really raising the stock. That's a lot of what we watch the World Juniors for, is getting that first taste and first watch of these big names coming up. And last year we got a little bit of that in Gavin McKenna. Canada obviously goes out early. This year looking to switch things up. But beginning the big storylines of this year's tournament with the 2026 draft class. Josh, let's talk about Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, I am so eager to watch this guy. Obviously, last year's tournament wasn't the best performance for him or Team Canada, bowing out in the quarterfinals. But I think McKenna is extremely motivated. And I think that's in part because he hasn't had an amazing start to the season at Penn State. He's been good, but not reaching the levels that many thought after he tore up the WHL
He's been
last
dropped
year.
by number 1 by a few outlets.
Exactly. So I think he's going to be motivated. He even said in an interview that he's going to be playing with a fire under him. So I'm really excited to watch this guy. I think he's going to dominate this tournament. He's looked great in pre-tournament action. I'm expecting high things.
Yeah, and with McKenna, the criticisms are effort level, off the puck, sort of. What is he bringing to the table? I feel like he can fix those things, and this is a great stage to be listen, I can turn these things on. Maybe Tuesday night. This is the typical thing that we say. Tuesday night in Columbus. He's obviously not in the NHL yet, but people would be saying that once he gets to the NHL.
Maybe when he's playing Ohio State.
There you go. I'm trying to think of an
What's
equivalent.
the Blue Jackets equivalent to the NCAA?
Yeah, whatever that is, he's probably slacking on that night. But I don't know. This guy, when you're of this quality of prospect, I feel like the effort stuff, the sort of off the puck, you can fix that. And I just feel like this is a great stage for him to silence his doubters. Mind you, if he doesn't fix it, the noise will grow even more. Or if Canada just falls on its face, which we don't necessarily expect, but you never know. So it feels a bit different than previous years with top prospects, where it's there's actually some negative buzz going into the tournament with the top guy or the presumed top guy coming into the season. So that adds a little more sort of spice to the storyline.
Yeah, it's fascinating where, if he went back to junior again this year, he'd probably be the unquestioned number 1 just because of the point totals he's putting up, right? But he goes to college. He's becoming a better player because of it, but also because of it and some of the struggles he's had early on, maybe his stock is dropping as well. I love that fiery quote of, I love it when people doubt me. That is what you want from a player like this. You want him to be fired up. And when you think about, Gavin McKenna, the player as well, this is no different than what he was in junior as well. And unbelievably skilled offensive talent who maybe isn't the highest compete guy off the puck or physical or anything like that. And I think it's maybe coming off of like Celebrini and Matthew Schaefer, who were these super high compete, like two-way defensive guys, and then going back to a first overall pick who's basically all offense is maybe shifted the perception a little bit, but it's at least great for us going into the World Juniors because we have that conversation of who's going to be the number one pick. And I think the most obvious challenger for that is Sweden's Ivar Stenberg.
Yeah, Stenberg's super interesting in a sense where he's on pace to set a record in the SHL for most points by a draft-eligible player. And
breaking whose record?
I think it's Daniel Sedin.
It is Daniel Sedin.
It's a throwback at this point, and that's super impressive. Frölunda just continues to pump out players, and I haven't watched him enough to like think that this is like the perfect comparison, but one I've seen is Nicholas Backstrom, and who doesn't love Nicholas Backstrom, and who wouldn't want to draft him high in the draft when this is a guy who's like an all-time playmaker. And Stenberg has these sort of elite playmaking chops. He's 6 foot 180, like he could pack on some pounds, but he's not tiny, so
not unlike McKenna as well.
Yeah, so the size isn't a big deal. And if we're talking just like, okay, if we're doing a mock draft today, the guy's a center, McKenna's a winger, you've got defensemen in the mix, like there's knocks against McKenna from a positional perspective, which like on one hand is understandable because hey, wingers just aren't as impactful game to game, but on the other hand, it's like, if you're picking first overall, please do not pick for position, right? Pick the player who you think is going to be the best NHLer long term. But it is interesting because it just brings up this whole idea of like center versus wing, which we talk about every year, but it emphasizes it at the top of the draft.
And when it comes to Stenberg, I think he might end up being a winger longer term. Sure. It's kind of where he's played as a pro, obviously being this 18-year-old kid playing in the Sweden top league. But like just to put some context in terms of the number he's putting up, he has one fewer point than Leo Carlsson had in his draft year in the SHL in 19 fewer games right now.
Wow.
He is on pace, as you mentioned, to break that Daniel Sedin record. It might get a little close right now just because he's missing some games for the World Juniors, but his scoring pace points per game is best all time right now. Last year in the junior league, he had the best points per game in that draft cycle in terms of his age at that time. This is a guy that's like statistically right there, if not ahead of Gavin McKenna. And the other crazy part, I think, to contextualize all of this even more for somebody in the NHL right now is that he's like 3 weeks younger than Matthew Schaefer in terms of like what Matthew Schaefer's doing in the NHL. It's incredible. But for these two guys, McKenna, Stenberg, I think they're clearly the two guys that are most intriguing at first overall. What do you think would have to happen at this year's tournament for either McKenna to cement himself as that number one or for Stenberg to leap over McKenna to become almost the consensus number one? Is it like clearly MVP type stuff for both of these guys, or is there a route where they don't have to be quite that good for them to kind of cement themselves as the number one for you guys?
I mean, I think if McKenna goes off and wins tournament MVP, he basically locks up first overall. I know there's still a long time left in the process, but
people remember the World Juniors.
People remember the big stage, the big moments. So if he can be not even tournament MVP, if he can be a key member, like a top 6 forward producing for Team Canada and they win gold, I think that's going to go a long way towards cementing his status. Yeah,
it's obviously high leverage, high stakes stuff, and that's important. But I think most of all, it's like the GMs come to this. They, if they're having their end of season scouting meetings, the GM's bringing up, what was he like in the gold medal game at the World Juniors? Whereas the area scouts like, well, in October he was this or that, right? So there's that sort of like bias that is layered on top of the World Juniors, which, you see it from two different perspectives where it's like big games, you got to produce, you got to show up, but also it's like it's 1 or 2 games. Let's not overemphasize. So there's a weighting thing there that I'm sure teams struggle with all the time.
Yeah, just on that GM point, last week in Kitchener for Canada's first pre-tournament game, Kyle Davidson was in the house. Even for a pre-tournament game, obviously, Anton Frundell was there, and that's probably a big reason why. But it doesn't hurt that Canada has 3 notable draft-eligible guys. And we talk a lot about the forwards there, and rightfully so. But something I'm super interested to watch in this tournament is the amount of draft-eligible defensemen that are projected to play at this year's tournament. You have Keaton Verhoff for Canada, who, as we're recording this, is currently on the roster. We'll see if he ends up being on the roster by that December 24th cutoff line. But that's a guy that has kind of been the projected number 2 all season, all kind of cycle long. Yeah, you have other guys like Chase Reed, who has come out of nowhere for Team USA, has made that roster. 14 months ago, he was cut by a USHL team and was sent down to the Null, played a few games there, got picked up by Sault Ste. Marie, and is just blossomed there. That's another guy that looks like he's going to get some minutes, and some other guys there as well. And so when I'm tracking some of these draft rankings, obviously the forwards are the ones that stand out at the top. But in my kind of consensus combined rankings of all the top outlets right now, 7 of the top 11 are all defensemen. And a fair amount of those are going to be playing at this year's tournament. Verhoff is going to get a lot of attention. Somebody like Carson Karls as well, who looks like he's going to be the number 7 D for Canada. Wasn't expected to be at this year's tournament. Just a mobile guy who has some size. Looks like he's going to play at least a little bit for Canada. Chase Reed, like I mentioned, for Team USA. But it's not even just those guys. Like Finland has a guy who's looking like he's going to be a top round pick in Juho Pipparainen. Sweden has a guy. Even Latvia has a guy who's creeping into top 10 conversation. And Albert Smits, somebody who's playing over 20 minutes per game in Finland's top pro league. Probably going to play like 25 plus minutes for Latvia at this year's tournament. And if they're going to repeat last year's upset at Team Canada, he's probably going to have to be a big part of it. And when I think about some of those secondary nation guys as well, I think a couple years ago to David Reinbacher. And Austria did not do well at that tournament, but Reinbacher impressed, played well in his pro league over the course of the season, ended up being the 5th overall pick. You can do a lot to, even on these smaller nations, get yourself some attention. So I'm really intrigued to see these defensemen in addition to those MVP conversations. This is a really intriguing draft year at the World Juniors for so many different players here. So is there any defenseman that you guys are either excited to see, like Verhoff, just because he's been in that top 2 conversation? What are you guys thinking on the defenseman front?
I'm really excited to watch Verhoff just because he's so toolsy. He's like 6'4", right-handed shot, like stuff scouts love. So I'm really interested to see how he can handle the speed of those big World Junior games.
And he's playing college hockey too.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm really excited to see him against those big powerhouses like USA and Sweden if we get there.
Awesome. So let's get ahead now from the 2026 guys to just kind of the 2 big storylines of Canada and USA. But before we do, if you're somebody that is maybe not caring as much about the 2026 draft class, cares about the prospects on your team, well, you're in luck because today on the Score app, my list of like 30 or 31 prospects to watch at this year's tournament is live on the app. One for every single NHL team that has a prospect at the tournament. So sorry to Carolina and Columbus fans who are out of luck this year. But if you're looking for that, you can check it out on the Score app. We've got it in the NHL feed, also the World Junior feed, and be sure to check out the World Junior feed for scores, news alerts, everything throughout the tournament. We've got you covered on the Score app. But let's get ahead to Team Canada here. Obviously a huge tournament coming off of back-to-back quarterfinal losses for the first time ever since the playoff format changed to the playoff format in 1996. So much of the conversation this past year has been about like selection process for Hockey Canada and what they can do differently here. And I think this year's forward group in particular is super stacked. John, where are you at on where Team Canada is entering this tournament?
I mean, I think it's super encouraging that they've sort of figured out a way to build a team that's, you know, it's kind of like the Olympic discussion. It's like, how do you find the balance between not building an all-star team where it's just, you know, let's sort by points and
we hear that so much from every international GM.
Yeah, so not doing that, but also not leaving off a lot of your best players like they did last year. Like they overthought it to such a to
galaxy
the
brain.
They get multiple galaxy brains that it was really bad last year, like an all-time fumble. So they've sort of recovered from that. They have the hunters in charge. And this is, you know, a brother tandem that just wins OHL championships.
And has done it at the World Juniors before as well.
They know exactly what they're doing. Like they would be the top of my list if I was picking, you know, the brain trust for Team Canada. So at forward, they have Michael Misa, Gavin McKenna, Porter Martone, like these real like high-end skilled guys. They're going to be the top-end producers. And then they have such a great mix of guys who, again, check off the box of like, would they make the All-Star team? Probably. But, you know, should they be on this team in terms of putting together a roster that's going to, on the ice, actually look like a full-fledged team that can win the gold medal? You know, Jet Lachenko, Braden Coots, Brady Martin, Cole Baudouin. Like, all these guys are like, they have high enough skill. They have the pedigree. But, like, they can play a third-line role. They can play up, you know, on the penalty kill. I look up, and the depth is there, right? It's not just like, oh, after 7 guys, it really falls off. It's like they had to make some difficult cuts here. So I just find that the forward group is super impressive, you know, top to bottom in terms of, like, the variety of player that they've selected.
A top 5 pick in Caden Lindstrom, who admittedly has not had a great season this year, but he was, like, left at home and, like, not even, like, really a second thought. Like, that's kind of the depth we're talking about on this roster. And there's the top 6 guys. But when you have, like, Caleb Desnoyers, who's a bottom 6 guy on this team, checker, who's also a top 5 pick. Like, Josh, like your excitement level to watch this forward group.
Oh, I cannot wait. Just, again, the depth you were talking about. But the one guy I'm really excited to watch to see what he does is Michael Misa, just because guys who have played in the NHL and then come back and got released to their World Junior team have not always delivered on the super high expectations we give them.
Not a lot of ice time they're getting in the early part of the season.
I think of like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins from way back in the day. I think he had a decent tournament, but wasn't amazing like everyone thought he might be. There's some other, like Luchenko last year came back from the NHL. I think expectations were pretty high. But Misa, he's been banged up a little bit. Yeah, he hasn't played a lot of minutes. He's only played like 7 games in the NHL. I think a couple in the AHL on a conditioning stint. So I'm really interested to see if he can deliver. And I think he'll be playing with a bit of chip on his shoulder because he was left off last year's team, despite leading the entire CHL in points and ending up being the 2nd overall pick. That's one of the fumbles you were mentioning. But so I think he's going to be really motivated to prove everyone wrong.
I mean, so we talk about the forward group. I think the defense is like solid. I wouldn't say it's like the best in the tournament going away kind of thing, but their goaltending is finally good. Like year after year, you go like, who's going to be Canada's goalie? And maybe they have one, but they don't have like much depth. Whereas you've got Carter George, Jack Ivankovic, like both excellent options.
And Joshua Ravensbergen, who might be the best prospect.
Best pro prospect
of the 3 of them, and having a really good year in the WHL this year. And he might not even play, which is crazy.
That's the kind of depth we're talking. It's weird talking about Team Canada where the goaltending, right? Yeah. And Carter George last year, even at the tournament, was great. Canada just couldn't get goals. Jack Ivankovic has been exceptional at the University of Michigan. So definitely a strength of this roster going into this year's tournament. Let's flip to the USA side of things now, who, instead of Team Canada having back-to-back quarterfinal exits, well, Team USA back-to-back gold medals for the first time ever, going for that historic three-peat for Team USA as well. Different head coach this season, very different roster, and I think a lot of the conversation about USA is not a favorite this year comes down to kind of the players they're getting through the national team development program.
Yeah, to me, you can draw a straight line between the U.S.'s 4 nations team and the Olympic team and the national team development program, where guys get in there and they turn out pros. They end up going to college or wherever they go. But it's such a hockey factory there. And things have changed a bit because now you can go to college or you can go to the CHL at a younger age. And like the landscape has changed. But that being said, the national team development program is still a pretty good reflection of where American hockey is in a certain age group. And the last 2-3 seasons, it's been kind of rough in terms of producing the high-end guys. And now it's showing in this World Junior roster, which isn't bad by any means. Like, they're still going to challenge for gold. And, if they got bronze, I think you can look at it and go, it's a pretty good showing for this American team that is looking to three-peat.
I don't think they would be happy with bronze.
No, I know, but I guess I'm just I'm trying to give them an out here where they don't have the best team possible.
I think the roster should be happy with bronze. I don't think the group will be because the tournament is in Minnesota.
And three-peat that's pretty sick.
That's the big thing there. And it's like you talk about the NTDP and like you look over the last 2 years. Like 2 years ago it was Lane Hudson, and then you had like Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault and Oliver Moore and Zeev Bouillon, Trey Augustine. All these top players for the last couple of World Junior teams came through the development program. And you look at this year's roster and you're just lacking kind of those top 10 picks and that kind of upper echelon players. And it's going to be a lot of probably James Hagens. And when you're looking at the roster overall, it's like, can Max Plant, who's a very good collegiate player this season, but a second-round pick, can he make a big difference? Can Will Horkoff, who's been great this year at Michigan, can he make a big difference? I think one of the fascinating things to talk about with the development program that kind of highlights just kind of the state that they're in, J.P. Hurlbert the last year left the program, went to the WHL. He's currently leading the league in scoring as a draft-eligible player. Now, there's a lot of reasons why he isn't on the roster, and you could probably make an argument for it in terms of the on-ice product. But the fact that one guy who left the program is leading the WHL in scoring and could have made this roster, and nobody on the current development program roster was even close to making this roster, not a great look for Team USA if you were to choose that kind of player. Politics, so certainly a guy that you probably wouldn't go to here. And for Josh, we talk about kind of the negative of like Team USA isn't the favorite this year after either maybe being the favorite last year or definitely being the favorite the year before. Like, how do they have their way to a three-peat here? How is it possible for Team USA?
I think it's going to be the best players delivering. And I know we talk about the depth of Canada being an edge in this tournament, but I think the World Juniors is still a tournament that can be dominated by your players up front. And if USA is going to do it, I think it's going to be on the back of Cole Hudson, who was unbelievable at the tournament last year. So he's going to have a
led
lot
the tournament in scoring last year.
Led the tournament in scoring as a defenseman, which is crazy. So I think he's going to be just dominant this year. He's going to be playing huge minutes, maybe half the game in those big games, 30 minutes a night against when you're playing Canada, Sweden, Czech, Finland. But so I think if USA is going to win, it's going to be Hudson and those other guys like Hagens really carrying the weight.
They've got like some of the star power that they could just go out and do it regardless. Like the big concern for me is like they have like 2 guys on the entire roster who are playing center this year. James Hagens isn't even playing center this year in the NCAA. He's been playing on the wing. Now he's obviously going to be their top line center because he did it last year in his draft year. So he's certainly going to do it again this year. But I want to pose you guys a bit of a trivia question just off of Cole Hudson here. It's not too crazy, so don't worry. It's in the past 10 years. There's one defenseman who has ever won MVP kind of since they went to this award format. It's happened in the last 10 years. Do either of you guys have it on hand? Because it's a bit of a surprising name.
Can you give us the country?
Canada.
A Canadian defenseman
Canadian defenseman, one tournament MVP, playing for. Oh, do you have a guess?
No.
Playing for the Ottawa Senators.
Thomas Chabot?
Thomas Chabot.
Oh. Right, yeah.
The
Chabot
only one.
was dynamite. I remember that tournament.
So, Cole Hudson, if USA is able to three-peat or something like that, could make some history.
Well, no Trey Augustine, right? Like, they don't have that goalie that you just put out there and you can really rely upon. Like, that's a huge loss. And obviously, guys age out of this tournament. It's not like Augustine did anything wrong or the
wrong birth year, I guess.
Yeah, wrong birth year. Yeah,
he already did it 3 times.
Passport. Yeah. But yeah, there's some concerning parts about Team USA, but like, yeah, they'll still be in the thick of things.
There are certainly some holes. I don't have them as like my tournament favorite or anything like that, but there's still a path for these guys to go and get it done, especially on home ice in Minnesota, because it's great to go and win those back-to-back medals. You do kind of want to win it at home. We've got some predictions going up on the Score app on Christmas Day, but do you guys want to maybe tease either some of your picks, or do you want to save it for Christmas Day here on the app?
I think we can save it for Christmas Day.
Okay.
Yeah, let's tease it. Come see. There's some bold ones. I'm sort of handling the predictions right now. The ones I've received so far. There's some spicy takes in there that you're gonna want to see.
I like it. The one tease that I'll give is I'm very high on Team Czechia this year. I love their team defense. You have like multiple first round picks, a lot of intriguing talent there, and Czechia has eliminated Canada a couple years in a row here, a team that I think can make some noise at this year's tournament. Okay, let's flip from the World Juniors here, and let's get into the holiday spirit a little bit. This is Secret Santa, our segment presented by Enterprise. Josh, who do you have a gift for this holiday season?
I just feel so bad for Sabres fans. Buffalo is such a great sports town, and man, they have just watched this team be an absolute disaster for basically over a decade. So I am gifting the Buffalo Sabres a blueprint. And this is for Jarmo Kekalainen, the new GM. I hope he has a plan to right the ship, a plan to change the culture. I know that's a buzzword you hear a lot, and it's, you can't necessarily measure it, but it's something that absolutely needs to happen. Need to find the right coach. Obviously, Lindy Ruff, he's probably might ride out the year, but he's obviously not the guy moving forward. No offense, Lindy. But so Jarmo needs to find the right coach, needs to find a way to change the culture. Hopefully he gets the resources from the ownership to build out a deeper hockey operations department, because that's been a big issue in recent years under Terry Pagula, who's done a great job with the Bills. Maybe he lucked into it, but yeah, the Sabres have just been an outright mess under him. So I'm giving them a blueprint. Hopefully they can find the success and turn this around before guys like Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson just flat out demand out because it's such a disaster.
Or just age out of their primes, right? Like, it's kind of crazy to say, but like, they're not that young anymore. I think on the priority list, it's got to be figuring out ownership first. That's got to be the top one. Just because you look at what happened with Kevin Adams and Jason Botterill, it seems like either they were hired to be yes men, or when they pushed back, they were fired. Or, with Botterill, there was rumors about how he sort of, became very insular and didn't communicate with ownership. That's never good either. So I think Kekalainen, from what I gather from talking to people, like, he's very much like an alpha dog, sort of like he commands a room. He's got this charisma. You assume from being on the inside as a senior advisor, you got a feel for what it's like to work under Terry Pagula, and wouldn't accept this job unless he knew, at least to some extent, he can influence ownership in terms of like, hey, I'm making this move, shut up over there. I'm making this move and we're moving forward, because they got to make changes. Like, it's not like he comes in and it's like, oh, we're going to ride this out and we'll see what happens. Like, he's got to make structural changes, and I think it starts with managing up well.
Kekalainen's also been a guy in his past stops where he hasn't been afraid to make the bold moves. Like in Columbus, I just remember the deadline where everyone's like, oh, they should probably sell. And he's like, screw it. I'm keeping Bobrovsky. I'm keeping Panarin. I'm going to go get Matt Duchene.
Yes.
So this is a guy who's not afraid to sort of go all in and do what he thinks is best, even if outside perspective thinks differently.
And they didn't go super deep on that run, but they pulled off one of the biggest upsets in NHL history.
Yes.
Awesome.
In the process as well, which is something that the Blue Jackets are always going to have there. John, like, you've been around the Sabres quite a bit. Like, if there is a blueprint that we're able to gift them, like, how aggressive do you think they can turn things around here?
I mean, I don't know why, but my head directly goes to Owen Power. Like, they gave him this massive contract, and I just see a guy who doesn't do enough on the ice, like is just too quiet in terms of his involvement and you know,
skill level.
Yeah, and like you know, put aside the first overall pick, it's the contract that he has. So is there a way to package that in a way that you get off of it? But he goes to a team that is actually willing to take him on and think that he has this sort of cornerstone potential. So that's where my head goes, you know, first. But you know, to the culture problem, like, when you watch a Sabres game, you don't even need to be in the room, but it does help if you see the room after. But if you watch a game, like, things snowball so quickly. They're down 2-1, okay, down 3-1. Most teams go, okay, let's figure it out, guys. But it just ends up being 6-1. Like, there's just such a snowball effect. Part of it is, like, the fans are so fed up with, you know, being out of the playoffs for, it's going to be 15 years this year. That's just unacceptable. And part of this is not the problem of the current players, but they got to figure out a way out of it. It's just, they're too young, they're too passive, and I think Kekalainen's a good hire in terms of like just like bringing in a different perspective as like a different personality, a guy who's made some swings and is just, you know, in a lot of ways, the opposite of Kevin Adams.
All right, before we move on, I'm going to throw out a name. John Tortorella coaching the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh my goodness.
Kekalainen's got a relationship with him.
That's how you switch up the culture.
Yes.
That's a guy that could maybe get the most out of Power, get him to play a little meaner and nastier and tighten up the whole team defensively. I'm just throwing it out there. I think it would be fun.
Yeah, like a year and a half of just chaos and see what kind of wreckage he leaves behind. I don't.
There's a certain floor that Tortorella teams
have
as well.
That's the thing. They would be sniffing the playoffs.
Defensively, they'll play hard. Yeah.
All right, you heard it here first. John Tortorella to the Buffalo Sabres. That's your other gift you're giving the Sabres here. John, who are you handing out a gift to this holiday season?
The Seattle Kraken get some smelling salts.
Ooh.
So obviously these are prevalent on NHL benches, but I want to bring it up to, you know, management or coaching level or you know, even higher than that maybe. I just find that the Kraken need to sort of wake up a little bit in terms of like, they are the most mid team in the NHL, and like I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. Sure, they got Berkeley Catton coming. They've got some dynamic quality in their system, but they just have no offense right now, and they're kind of wasting a really good defensive season and some good goaltending from Joey Decord, and like they have pieces, but I can't get over how underwhelming their offense is, and the fact that they've committed to a bunch of players that are good NHLers, but like, where are the great ones? Like, this is a league where you need at least some star power, and I just don't see it with them. So I think the waking up would be in terms of just making bolder moves, like, you know, pulling a Kekalainen in Buffalo kind of thing, where I just feel like if they continue down this road where they've been pretty conservative, that they're just gonna end up in the middle of the standings for the next decade.
I think they really need that like alpha up front who can kind of push everyone down, and the way to get that is in the draft, high in the draft.
Yep.
And to do that, they need to bottom out a little more. Like they're a bad team, but they're not quite bad enough to be in that inner circle lottery contention. So I think they need to sell off some of those veteran guys who teams are like, let's stop extending Adam Larson and all these guys and let's start moving them out for future pieces.
They've had some high picks, but none of those forwards have hit in kind of the way that are those top echelon in terms of like offensive producers. Like Matty Beniers hasn't become that. Shane Wright hasn't become that. Berkeley Catton might become that, but he's not that right now. Jake O'Brien, who was actually just cut from the World Junior team, he's still a high-end offensive producer. Maybe he can become that. But all those guys don't look like they're top echelon in terms of that, like, complete franchise difference maker. And, like, when you're then in the offseason going out and signing, like, big contracts for Brandon Montour and Chandler Stevenson, it's like the more aggressive moves that they have made have been for older players on big free agent deals that have had kind of mediocre success outside of Brandon Montour. I think has been a success. Everything else, and I think it kind of goes back to that first offseason when they gave that big contract to Philip Grubauer and kind of set things up for this entire discussion here. So 2 gifts handed out. I'm going to hand one out here as well. And come on, we got to give a gift to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And look, the Maple Leafs are cursed in some kind of way. So I'm trying to reverse that curse. I'm going to Etsy. I'm hiring an Etsy witch for the Toronto Maple Leafs to try and right the ship long term. I don't care if I'm hiring some good luck spell for 2 to 3 months just to right the ship. If I'm hiring it forever, depends what the MLSE budget is. I think there's one 75% off right now. It's a pretty good deal. I just need something to go right. I'm hiring an Etsy witch for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Can you unpack this? What is an Etsy witch?
I don't know, and I think that's probably a good thing. I just need somebody who has some supernatural kind of powers, whether I believe it or not, just something put out in the universe, and hopefully it works, because clearly everything the Maple Leafs are trying is not working.
I think on the next episode of the show, we should bring in an Etsy witch just to discuss what they actually do.
There we go. I said we're going to hire an Etsy witch, so maybe...
How can you fix the Leafs?
Yes, there we go.
I like the creativity, because as we talk about all the time, like salary cap, everyone, even playing field off the ice, spend like crazy on your resources. The Leafs do that. They have a ton of staff. But do they have a witch?
There we go. The Maple Leafs need an Etsy witch on the staff. There we go. We figured it out. Well, this has been a good show. I'm hyped for the World Juniors here coming up later this week. You can catch all of our coverage on the Score app throughout the tournament as well. But that's going to do it for this episode of Top Shelf presented by Enterprise. I'm Kyle Cushman. For Josh Wegman, John Matisz, everybody behind the scenes, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Have a happy and safe holiday season, and we'll be back in the new year.